On mute. Thank you so much for organizing this event. I'm very pleased to share with you the work that I've been working on now for the last, I would say, 20 years, maybe even more, but around 20 years. And let me start by sharing my screen. Een seconde. Tell me if you can see my screen. Yeah, all right.
Could you make it just a teeny bit bigger, Raquel?
Yeah, I will. One second.
Thank you.
Een seconde. I want to like this. Is it okay now? And I want to hide the floating meeting controls. Okay. Can you see it properly now? Yeah, all right, good. So thanks a lot. We're going to talk this evening about the Simon Wiesenthal Genealogy Geolocation Initiative of Skala, which is called in short SWIGGI Skala. I will start by introducing the team who are also present here. Maya Zakrin. Maya. Here's Maya. Maya is a project
Okay.
manager. She joined over a year ago and has a huge contribution to the further development of the SWIGGI platform and especially of the genealogy, geolocation, family history books, about which I will tell you a little bit later. And my colleague Yossi Beck, who's been working with me now for the last 7 years, is let's call him the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, responsible for all the programming, and me, And in this special group, the Scala Research Group, I must say that I really feel at home. I also help Tony from time to time, and as we are all connected, I know that I'm talking tonight to family. So the presentation is divided in 5 parts. I will start with cultural heritage, followed by a few words on Simon Wiesenthal, as it is my late grandfather's 20th yahrzeit. Then I'll tell you about the Simon Wiesenthal genealogy, especially related to Skala, and it's great that Helene Kenvin is also present because some of the major discoveries were made with Helene when I started working, but even back in the 60s when Helene was carrying out genealogy event when my grandfather visited the United States. This will lead me to SWIGGI, which is a technological platform, very innovative, which today also links to AI. So we have and always had quite a lot of innovation. And then I will share with you the opportunity to develop Scala family history books. This is a project that Maya is working on and developing further. So I've always tried to bring myself into my presentations. I deeply believe in culture, heritage, and especially in the saying from Pirkei Avot, Da me'ayin bata u'le'an ata holech. Know from where you came, where you're going. I think that's important. There's always somewhere we came from. We have roots, which leads us to whoever we are, and probably also leads us through the present into our future. And there are different ways to explore our past. And one, as you can see here, was carried out for many years by Max Mermelstein, who organized physical family history tours to Skala. And later on, you will see how Max and I are related. Max is Simon Wiesenthal's second cousin. And there's also another way of exploring Skala Podolska, and that is the way I have been walking through, and that is doing virtual tours of Skala. And here you can see me on the right-hand side. Yes, I like genealogy, I like family history, and I like the development of innovative tools, such as the ones that I will share with you. Before we start, I'll show you some of the questions that that people might pose. For instance, when visiting Skala, here's a street in Skala, I can ask myself, where did my ancestors live in Skala? Or if I would go to a shtetl like Skala, and I would like to see where were the synagogues, so where did my ancestors pray in past generations? And I can do the same. I could ask the same question, for instance, in Vienna, if I want to go back to Kristallnacht, to the destruction of the synagogues. Where were these synagogues prior to pogrom night? That's another question that we might pose. Or the beautiful work which was carried out by the Skala research group, the renovation and structuring of the fence around the Skala cemetery. So I can ask myself, where are my ancestors buried? And can I go from a tombstone to the house or to the family tree or to their whereabouts? So that's another thing that I could be interested in. Or as we deal a lot with the Holocaust, can I ask the question, where was my family deported to during the Holocaust? Here you can see, we can ask this question about the 65,000 Viennese Jews, and we can see they were deported to different locations. And I can do that at a level of a city, but I could also do this at the level of a city, of a family. Or if we again talk about the Holocaust, can I locate my family members on a wall? Okay, and on a wall there are many, many names. And how can I find a connection about people on the wall? And can I learn more about a given person who is commemorated on the wall? And what we do is we develop genealogy geolocation tools in the name of Simon Wiesenthal, which address these questions. So as I told you, it is my grandfather's 20th yahrzeit. So I want to share with you a little bit about my grandfather. You can see here 3 pictures of myself and my grandfather. I don't have many of them, but those that I have are, of course, precious to me. On the left-hand side, you can see a picture that I use very often. That was a picture taken in 1982 in Herzliya in Israel. 10 years later, this was in Los Angeles for the inauguration of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles. And 13 years later, in February 2005, a few months before my grandfather passed away in Vienna, you can see both of us sitting next to the dining table in their home in Vienna. My grandfather was originally from Buchach, which is a shtetl in Galicia, nowadays in the Ukraine. And during those times, he was part of a small family that was comprised of, his father, Asher Hensel Wiesenthal, and Rosa Rapp. And he had a brother called Hillel. On the right-hand side, you can see a house that was found by Tom Segev, the historian who wrote another biography about my late grandfather when he passed away. And this is probably the house in which the Wiesenthal family lived. And on the left-hand side, you can see a picture of my grandfather with a youth movement. And unfortunately, my grandfather was left alone in the following way. His father was killed in 1915 during World War I in Stanislav. His mother remarried and moved away to another Galician shtetl, Dolina, and his brother Hillel died from illness in 1923. So my grandfather spent quite a lot of time in Galicia with another family. I want to move. Yeah, with a family Müller. Here you can see that this is also his future wife, Zila Müller. So my grandparents, they married in 1936 while moving away both from Buchach to Lemberg, to Lvov, nowadays also in the Ukraine. And my grandfather, who was an architect, worked there as an architect. And here you can see one of the houses that were designed by Simon Wiesenthal, as found by Rick Trank, who used to manage the Moriah films of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And also, when my grandfather passed away, made another movie about my grandfather and was looking for these houses. My grandfather survived World War II, going from the left-hand side, from Lvov, Lemberg, into the ghetto and also into the concentration camp, the Janowska concentration camp, and followed the death march to Austria, where he ended up in Mauthausen. Here you can see what's called the death stairs in the Mauthausen concentration camp. This is today, but in the past you could see here that the people, the inmates, they were carrying the stones from the quarry of the Mauthausen concentration camp uphill. And when people were suffering from fatigue and they stumbled over, of course, it had a horrible effect on all those that are walking underneath them. And my grandfather was liberated from this camp by the Americans in 1945, losing 89 of his family members. Here you can see Colonel Richard Seibel of the US Army, who liberated the camp. Above you can see the gate with the symbol of the Nazis. And on the right-hand side, you can see my grandfather, who was quite a tall man, but also a large man, weighing only 39 kilos at the end of the war. And this is also the time when he started working for the Americans. My grandfather, thus, was first of all a Holocaust survivor. And through his work trying to search for the Nazis and their collaborators, through his work with the Mossad, he became what is known as the Nazi hunter. And at the bottom, you can see a map in his office in Vienna, where he's pointing out to one of the camps. And on the right, you can see books that he wrote, which describe the work that he carried out as Nazi hunter, such as The Murderers Among Us, or about himself as a Nazi hunter. He had huge achievements, not only when it comes to the number of Nazis that he brought to justice, but also the people and the impact that it had on the Jewish people. So if it is on the left-hand side, Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the final solution, or Franz Stangl, the commander of Sobibor and Treblinka, which we'll mention later. Hermina Braunsteiner, who was called the mayor of Majdanek, was very cruel. Walter Rauff, the inventor of the gas vents, and Karl Silberbauer, the SS officer who arrested the Frank family in the Netherlands. Simon and Zila managed to unite after the war in 1946. This is also 1945. In 1946, my grandmother was born, and my grandparents thus lived for many, many years together in their home in Vienna. My grandmother Zila passed away on the 10th of November 2003 at the age of 95, and Simon passed away in September 2005. You can see that, as many of us are genealogists, that Zila was 4 months older as my grandfather, and therefore she was 95 and he was 96 at that time. They're buried in the Herzliya Cemetery. You can see the plaque that we set up, as well as the tombstones of both Zila and Simon Wiesenthal. And I think that my grandfather left a huge legacy, which includes, among others, that he restored the dignity of the Jewish people. He combated Holocaust denial, for instance, by searching for the SS officer who arrested the family of Anna Frank. He remembered the 6 million Jews and other minorities, and his motto was, of course, justice, not revenge, tolerance, humanity. And he also got prizes for that, such as the Presidential Medal of Freedom that you can see here at the bottom. This is me. I believe that my grandfather did not forget the 6 million Jews, and we should not forget him. And therefore, we dedicate this work to him. Now, let's see what we did in the field of family research. Why am I saying this? Because when Simon Wiesenthal passed away, then Tom Segev, the historian, asked to write another biography, the last biography on my grandfather, sorry. And all I asked is, please send me letters in which it says, dear cousin. And that's what happened. Now, why did I do this? Because I was interested in the following. When my grandfather passed away, President Bush at the time writes in his second sentence, when he commemorates my grandfather, that Simon Wiesenthal lost 89 relatives in the Holocaust. And I was interested, who were these people? So again, if I go back to Me'ayin Bata Ul'an Eta Holech, I was interested in the fate of these people. And it was very difficult because in 63, what Simon Wiesenthal says to Anne Wiesenthal, not Wiesenthal, but Wiesenthal in the States, in Pennsylvania, is that alle ausgemordet haben wir niemand. We had no one. All were murdered and we have no one. Do you also see this? Can you see properly the entire slide? Yeah, okay. Okay, which makes it challenging. So one of the things that I did in 1999, that was in the year that Maya, who is here with us, as I already introduced, was born. I went to Vienna with about 90 pages of testimony, and I asked for my grandfather's and grandmother's help. Please help me identify them. And my grandfather, as you know, had a fantastic memory, and therefore I was quite surprised that I had hardly any names. He did give me a name of a person called Zaide, and you can see the Yad Vashem record here, and he mentioned someone else called Gershom. He did tell me about his father's name, but he couldn't remember who other people were. And this is where the genealogy research really started, and which brings us to Skala. There's a letter from the 14th of January 1946 in which a person named David Wiesenthal writes to Simon Wiesenthal and says, "We learned that you, Simon Wiesenthal, are looking for David, Gershom, and Azriel. I am David. Gershom and Azriel are dead. Tell me about Morris Rapp from Skala." If you remember in the beginning when I showed you the little family tree of Simon Wiesenthal, his mother was Rosa Rapp. Thus, if someone mentions a family name that we understand means that that person knows that this is indeed family, this is a good path to follow. So we looked at census records that matched this address and started discovering the family. Here at the bottom, you can see Simon, the son of Ashil, and all of a sudden you can see that there is an uncle called David. David was married to Bessie, and they had 4 children. Soon I'll tell you something about one of these 4 children. And Simon was also the grandson of Shimon. Here you can see a tombstone which says David ben Shimon. So David, the son of Shimon. I'm a scientist by training, so I very much like proof, and therefore this proves that indeed David is the son of Shimon, which also means that Simon Wiesenthal was named after his late grandfather, who died in 1906. Simon Wiesenthal was born in 1908. If we focus a sec on David, then we can see here, you see here in the audience, we have Helene. Helene, you want to just say hi? Helene is in the audience with us. So this is an event in 1967 at the Wiesenthal gathering. I was born in 66, so I was 1 year old at the time. But there was a gathering of the family in the house of Arthur and Sandy West, and Helene collected names and took pictures. So you can see here Helene, who is standing next to my grandfather, very tall man in the middle. And here you can see that Helene's family, her great uncle and her grandfather that are surrounding my grandfather, look very similar to Simon Wiesenthal. And Helene and I are still looking for the family connection between her branch, that is depicted here on the right-hand side, and mine. But what you can see beyond that is that there was a serious attempt to understand who are these different families and what is the connection to Simon Wiesenthal. And here you can see names that we have said already: David, Gershom, Azriel, Zaide. And yes, with the help of Helene at the time, we did find also the tombstones from Gershom and his wife that were that are buried in the Mount Hebron Cemetery in New York, where many people from Skala are buried. You can see Gershon, Bar Shimon, Gershon, the son of Shimon. And Azriel, again, you can see on the tombstone, Azriel, Bar Shimon, also in the Mount Hebron Cemetery. So what we can see is, if we carry out this family research, that we can decipher many uncles of Simon Wiesenthal. His uncle Zaide, and who was murdered, it was originally from Buchach, and the 3 others, David, Azriel, and Gershom. And the grandparents, Shimon and Hanzi. So I got more interested in Shimon and Hanzi, and I saw their marriage record. Now, marriage record at that time was very different from what we have today. They were married, according to the records, in 1858. And this is a marriage record. It is a line in let's say, a page in which you have on the left-hand side, can you see here? It's circled 27. So 27 means that's a house in which they lived. So we have the house number, and then we have the names of the groom and the bride and the groom. And okay, that's the marriage record. My mother, Paulina, she saw that there are two other people that were living in house number 27. And she pointed my attention to that. Who are these two other people? They are the couple Mathis Weidenfeld, who married Bela Wiesenthal, and Goldie in Israel Schwartz. And here again, the letters help us decipher the family connection because Simon Wiesenthal writes in 1954 that he does remember another cousin Weidenfeld from Trembohola and Wassermann. The family research that I at the time carried out was to try and see who is Wassermann. And I'm showing it to you now because it has to do again with Skala. So Weidenfeld and Wassermann, they were extensively murdered. But you can see here Shlomo Weidenfeld at the tombstone of his mother, Bele. Bele was the sister of Simon Wiesenthal. So if we look at Mathis and Bele, you can see at the bottom that they are the grandparents of Max Weidenfeld, Max Mermelstein. Okay, so Max Mermelstein is originally Max Weidenfeld. And Hilde Zauderer, I don't know if you remember her, but I do have memories of her. So this is how we managed to, I would say, decipher a huge part of the Simon Wiesenthal family stemming from Skala. And this led us to the SWIGGI project. How did we do that? I started to get interested in house numbers. I understood that, okay, I've deciphered my family. I now understand who are my great uncles and etc. But I also saw that when you focus on house numbers, all of a sudden you can find many connections between people that do not necessarily carry the same last name. And I like databases, so I developed this Skala Podolska house number database. At the time, we're talking about the years 2005, 2010. Pamela Weisberger, do you remember Pamela, who was the president of Gesher Galicia, started coming up with fantastic information, the Austrian-Hungarian cadastral maps. You can see on the left-hand side, these are beautiful maps from, let's say, the beginning of the 19th century, mid-19th century. And it's great. I could now, together with people like Jay Osborne, who is depicted here on the left-hand side, find the houses that I already knew about. So I can identify house number 27 on a cadastral map of Skala. Then I started working with Yossi Beck, whom I introduced in the beginning. And I asked Yossi Beck, tell me, can you take this 19th century cadastral map and superimpose it or georeference it on a Google map so that I can see where it is today? And from then till today, Yossi Beck is capable of doing everything, anything that I can even come up with. And in this regard, Yossi started working with me on georeferencing the Skala house number database on a Google map. So we developed what we call SWIGGI Skala, which I'll show you. And as we are carrying out genealogy, you can search this website using genealogical data, like first name, last name, Soundex, exact name, but you can also search it using the house number. And as you know, in our Scala research group, sometimes we have these short discussions, and I try to show people, this is house number this, and this is house number that, but we can virtually and physically visit the sites in Scala using SWIGGI Scala. We have taken this a huge step forward. I don't have time to go into all that, but I'll just tell you that if you would go to our homepage, which is simonwiesenthal-galicia-ai.com, you will see that we have now developed 5 pillars. They stand for Recht. Recht means justice. Remember I said my grandfather, justice, not vengeance. So Recht stands for R for research, E for education, C for the commemoration of Simon Wiesenthal, H for Holocaust Memorial, and T for tours. we will focus now on the research part. But I'm also a tour guide, so I believe that we should be able to develop those virtual tours that will enable us and especially our descendants to visit the places where our ancestors once lived. For the research part, we have now the entire Netherlands. We have major cities in Germany. We have Vienna and we have Mauthausen in Austria. We started developing Israel. We have Poland, the Ukraine, Greece, North Macedonia, and even a project which is called Rescue that commemorates Jews who rescued Jews. So if you would enter into this website, you can see that you can search it also by, you see here, it's hard for me to move my mouse. Where is it? Can you see here where it said search over 700,000 records with one click? All right. If you go into that link, then 1 second, let me just go back. So this is the Skala Podolska map. The Skala Podolska SWIGGI map, you can see it now properly. You can search it with the names. That is in the yellow, you have the genealogy research. In green, you have the geolocation research. But we also show the location of synagogues, of churches. What you can see here in green are houses that were owned by Jews in which Jews lived. In yellow, houses that were owned by Gentiles in which Jews lived. And in blue, houses that were owned by Christians in which Christians lived. And you can see that we can search this website not only with individual names, but also with a family tree. So in one click, we can see all the houses of a given family. Or you can see here the time span going from 1825 to 1905. We can narrow that. I can say I'm interested only in houses from 1825 till 1850, and all that can be displayed. So I recommend you have a look what we offer. This is the second search engine that we have developed. And this is a search engine that you can enter from the homepage. That's from here, where it says search over 700,000 records. And you can search it in two ways. On the left-hand side, you can see that you can search by person. On the right-hand side, you can search by address. I will start from the right-hand side. If I want to search a given address in Skala Podolska, I will choose the location of Skala and street I can leave out for the shtetls, such as Skala, and therefore I only have to enter the number Skala, house number 27, Skala, house number 45. On the left-hand side, we have been developing this further. First, sorry, we choose the location. So here the location would be Skala. And then we can enter a name. We can enter the name exactly, or the name can contain or soundex. And if we want, if there are many people, we can also add a first name, the birth year, the death year, etc. Nowadays, we have also added another location, and that is a camp. So if you want, you can search in Auschwitz with a given name. You can search in Treblinka with a given name. So we have those different options. We developed this even further. We developed this even further. 1 second, I need to drink. That is, when you search by person, such as you see here, you will get a result. So it says, dear researcher, your search matched Simon Wiesenthal, who was born in 1841. You remember? That's Simon Wiesenthal's grandfather. And from here, we can go to this house. You remember where it is? House number 27 in Skala. And it's linked to a family tree, the family tree of Wiesenthal Kreisberg, which resides in Skala, Vienna, the Netherlands, Berlin, Germany, and Israel. But we have added something unique now. And that is, you can, from this point, you can also ask AI about this record. That means we have created a world in which you will search the 700,000 names or addresses, and then you can see that Yossi has developed several predefined questions, such as I would like to retrieve information on this person from reliable sources, not our resources from the outside world. Or can you give me valuable leads for further research on this person or information on the location of residents in Scala? And then we get the result. Let's have a look at the result. So without going into this very thoroughly, you can see if I would ask for information on the location of a residence in Scala, then I can get a concise history of the town. I can learn a little bit about the Jewish community. I can learn about the fate of the Jews during the Holocaust. And all of this is actually outside outside SWIGGI. That's what's so unique about it. The last part is going to be, Maya, how am I doing for time? I'm
You're
okay.
doing great.
All right. So the last part, I will slow down a little bit. We'll show you how we take all this, what we can do digitally, using AI, and turn this into something that can also be of use and value for our descendants, for our grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And the way we do this is by developing by developing family history books. And in a way, we are offering to do this, of course, for Scala, because you will see what we can offer. So let's have a look together. So this is a project that Maya has been working on, the development of SWIGGI genealogy geolocation books. How do we do this? First of all, we like to ask questions. So when we think of a given book for our descendants, we can ask ourselves, what is the overall story that we wish to tell? Or which materials do we already have before we enter into a heavy research project? On which family members or branches would we like to focus? What are the most important events that we would like to highlight? How will we commemorate Holocaust victims? And we can pose many questions which will direct our research. Then we have developed our SWIGGI research and development methodology, which is comprised of 5 steps. The first step is going to focus on the history. We are in a given region and in a given time, and therefore we want to carry out some research on the country and the town's history. We also want to research the wartime events and how they possibly affected the family. So I was telling you about Simon Wiesenthal, right? That's full of history when it starts in Buchach and Skala and Mauthausen and Vienna, etc. So we want to gather all that information. When it comes to genealogy, which is marked here in orange, then we will continue carrying out our research. We're going to continue carrying out research in the archives, for instance, in the Polish archives or archives elsewhere. And then, as many of us here are genealogists, we will develop the family tree. In our case, we use the professional MyHeritage software. When it comes to geolocation, again, taking all this information on family trees and even on the history, we want to see this on a map that represents our family. I don't want a map of entire Europe. I want a map of my family. Develop for me my SWIGGI map. So we will develop a database. Again, we need to have the data available in a database with which we can work. And then we can develop SWIGGI house maps. When it comes to commemoration, we will develop SWIGGI Holocaust memorial pages, which I haven't shown you yet, and I will do that in a second. And we can develop Holocaust deportation maps. So we can see not what I told you in the beginning, a map of where were all the Viennese Jews deported to, but where was my family deported to. And the last phase would be the development of the book. So we will use AI to develop family stories from the family trees and all the information that we have gathered, and we will develop a family book. So let's see how we do this. The first step is historical data, historical research. I know, Efraim, you're an historian, and so what we do, we try to gather information on the country and the city and the region in which on which we focus. So we were focusing here on the area of Kielce in Poland. And we can carry out as much research as we want in order to get a rough idea or a deeper idea about this region. The second thing would be to develop our genealogy research. And we will use a lot of different types of data. It can be vital records, such as birth, death, or marriage records. It can be immigration records. It can be online databases such as Yad Vashem, or even on-site national archives. It can be books, stories written by family members, photos. In our case, what we do by using MyHeritage, we develop a family tree. So here you can see one part of that family tree and the use of MyHeritage as the genealogical software. The second thing that you can see under the genealogy research that we carry out is specific research by working with experts that will conduct research in various national, regional, and municipal archive. For instance, here you can see the Kielce archive in Poland, and here is the oldest document that we retrieved for this specific research from 1855. And here you can see the record itself. That's when it comes to genealogy research. Now let's move on to the third option or the third step, which is the development of the SWIGGI maps. First, we need a database. We need to have all the information structured in a database, which will give us a good overview of every piece of information that we have so far. What you can see here, this is actually the database of Scala that I still use in order to show this. And then we can develop a SWIGGI map for a given family. For instance, this family came from the region of Kielce, which is in this area. Here's Kielce. Here are different towns in which family members resided before they were either transported to Treblinka, where we commemorate them, or they migrated to the US, where we have the family that is interested in this story. And when we look at a given person, we can see at what levels we can commemorate Holocaust victims. So we can commemorate the Holocaust by going from Kielce or Wodisław and Kielce to the different locations during the war. And we can also commemorate them through what we have developed, which are Simon Wiesenthal Holocaust memorial pages. If you remember when I showed you what we offer under Recht, we had research, education, commemoration of my grandfather, and then we had Holocaust memorial pages. These Holocaust memorial pages, each and in every individual one has a URL, has a website. And in this website, we can link many different pieces of information. For instance, for this girl, Dina Braun, who was 13 years old when she was murdered in Treblinka, we can, from this website, go to her SWIGGI address. We can go to her family tree. We can go to her Yad Vashem record. And the last stage will be to take all the information that we gather and write and produce the book, the family history book for a given person. This is what we're doing. And if I have a few minutes left, Tony, you told me that I could also show it to you online. Otherwise, I can stop and I can take questions, and so can Maya and Yossi. Tony?
I think there's a couple of questions in the chat. Would you like me to read them to you?
Yeah, with pleasure. 1 second, I'll stop sharing. Een seconde. I'll stop sharing. All right. Yes.
Okay, from Bonnie Rosenstock. Why can't I locate my family in Skala? That's where they are from, and my grandparents are buried in Mount Hebron in the Skala Cemetery.
So the question is why you cannot allocate
Why
them?
Bonnie Rosenstock can't
Yeah.
locate her family in
Okay.
Skala.
The reason is that for Scala, we do not have all the information. For a shtetl like Nadvorna, which is managed by Dr. Stephen Turner, we have all the information. So it depends on the community. If there would be an effort to basically digitize the data, then we could incorporate that, and then all these people could be allocated on SWIGGI Scala.
By the way, I should say, Raquel, and Yossi and Maya, I'm so impressed with this. It's really, I'm just blown away by the extent of information. I mean, it's hard for me to process because there's so much coming at me at once. So I'm glad we recorded it so people will be able to, go back and figure it out.
I've offered to work with Bonnie. Uh, I think there's a lot of Jewish Gen databases that can be helpful, like JRI Poland and Geshe Galicia and other databases that Jewish Gen has. So I'll see what I can do to help Bonnie find information.
And of course, there's Max, who's the champion of it all.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
My maternal grandfather was a Goldschein. The only document I have is his naturalization in Leeds, England, saying that he was born in Skala on Zerbruch. I've never, in all my workings with this group, heard of anybody who knew the Goldscheins or was related to them. Am I wrong? Is anybody here aware of that family? I know that most of them were murdered, according to the Yuska book, by the Nazis. But I've never heard from anybody, don't know anybody who knows them. Is it possible that they lived in a shtetl outside of Skala? I just don't know.
It's
And
interesting,
I
Alex.
haven't,
Oh,
excuse
I
me?
was going to say my grandfather, Abraham Herzog, also went to Leeds and then came to the United States from there. So there must have been some connection, right?
Not necessarily. There were a lot of Jews that went to Leeds. No answers. Okay. I haven't looked, Racheli, at your Swiggy map. I just haven't been there yet. I will look. We'll see if I find any relatives.
That's great.
Thank you.
Elisa, can you unmute yourself?
It
Yeah.
took us a little while. Sorry for the delay in getting the information, but we have some very minor information that I sent you. We have in our family someone that lived at house 298 in Skala who only lived to the age of 3, like she was born there and died. And I'm just kind of curious, like once you get such information, how does it get integrated into this? Because I just looked up and, it's not there yet, but, I was just wondering what's the process.
Yeah, so as you see, we have a very strict way of working. That means we need proof. If someone wants to add another piece of information, we ask that person to send us an email with all the information on that given house and as well as a document, because we don't have a database. It's actually a knowledge base. The idea is not to gather as much as possible names, but to be more or less sure that the information that we have is as accurate as possible. And therefore, that's the way to do it. Another way is also if you send us the JetCom file. That means the format of family trees that enable us to link a given family tree to a house or to more than one house.
Yeah. So we just have a record from like Jewish Gen that has has that house number in it. And
Mhm.
I think I sent that, but maybe I didn't. I'm not sure.
I don't
Okay.
recall.
Okay.
Alex, to your
Okay.
question,
I'll
we
try
do
to
have one
make
house
sure you
in
have that.
Skala, in house number 166, which has 8 Goldsteins in it and 4 wives of Goldsteins. So, and maybe you'll find family there. You can just look right in Goldstein. There's one house that has all these people in there. So maybe
All right.
that includes
Thank you
people
very
that you're
much.
looking for.
I will look. Thank you, Yossi.
Maybe I'll take it one moment, as you'll see, did something that will help you see what we're doing. So if I go into Scala, okay, I'll go into the Ukraine. I'm just going to repeat what Yossi did. I can now go into house number. I can write here
Right,
last name
Goldstein. Yeah.
Goldstein. All right,
Oh,
Goldstein.
shine. Yeah.
Goldstein.
Shine.
Shine. Okay, I
SCH.
found Goldstein. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
fine. Goldstein, Goldshine.
I
All
can do
good.
Soundex, okay, and then I can search. So there are no results for Goldstein. But if I do Goldstein, as Yossi suggested, okay, then this is what you do. You get to house number 166. You
Mhm.
can see all the people with the name Goldstein that were living in this house.
Terrific.
You can also take the pegman and go into that area, and now you'll see the street. Okay, the whole idea was to link the information that we have digitally and to show it to you also on the map.
That's terrific.
Helene,
It's worth looking in genealogy, especially in Eastern Europe, always for similar names, because often things were written down. When people emigrated or were naturalized, then names were written down in different ways. Also, Polish or Russian and spelling and letters often caused names to be warped over time. So it is possible, not in this case, but it's very well possible somebody's Goldstein would be written down as Goldschein or something like that. I've seen that happening a lot of time.
I
Yeah,
will follow.
he was Goldschein in the old country, and when he immigrated to England in the 1890s, he became Max Goldstein.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
will follow up on Yossi's remark. If I will go into the PDF format search engine and I will type in Skala Podolska and Goldstein, and I will do contains. I can search. All right. I will find multiple results. One second, where are my multiple results? It got stuck, or am I wrong?
Yeah, for me.
There you go. Whoop.
Sorry. So what? I will continue taking questions until this will work. But one of the things that Yossi developed is that one of the AI questions is show me people that have a similar last name. That means one of Yossi's AI queries are help me with my research because I'm looking for Goldstein or Goldschein, and AI will then come up with these suggestions. Maybe you should look for Goldstein. So this is another AI query that Yossi developed.
Racheli,
Yeah.
I see there is a server upgrade in process, so we're unlucky for your timing, but
Ah,
it will
You
probably.
have questions from Tony and Helen, I see.
all right.
Let
Helene,
me just,
you want to unmute yourself? Can someone help unmute Helene?
I can't do it from here. She's got to do it.
Helene, can you unmute yourself? You cannot?
I'm
in the
trying,
chat.
Helene, but I can't. I can ask you to unmute, but I can't unmute you from here. Wait, let me see.
Well, Helene, can you put it in the chat? Okay.
Tony, what's your question?
I just, yeah. Does your database, I presume, includes JRI Poland and Gesche Galicia and some of the other databases that Jewish Gen has produced?
That's a good question. We were in touch with Dr. Stephen Turner, and we made an offer to Jewish Gen because, as you can imagine, this work is very work intensive. We use a lot of research, all for which I actually pay for. I've been doing this for the last 20 years. And therefore, in order to carry out a project such as taking digitized data that exists in Jewish Gen and linking it to the cadastral maps that are available now in Gesher Galicia's cadastral room, that requires a budget. But we made the offer.
Can
Like
you
I
hear,
think, yeah,
can you hear me now?
yes.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude when you asked me to chat, but I can't see, so I can't use the chat. I wanted to ask you, it seemed to me that what you were showing us had to do with Scala proper. Part of my family lived in Stare Scala, which was the Gentile section of town, which was down the hill from Scala proper. And I wondered if you had done or were planning to do any work in that area as well with respect to those houses.
Yeah, I think maybe you'll see if you remember properly, we had all that. So it was part of the database, and we could differentiate between the Scala Podolska and the Scala Stari. And I recall that we had all the information. What I suggest is that, again, you just have a look, you go into the database, and then you will try and see whether you can find it. So, for instance, you can search it with a family tree. Okay, so I know that I'm saying something else. If I go to Tony's family tree, the Hausner family tree in Scala, and I will do a search, then I would see that there is one house, house number 302. But if I will go now to a Max family tree, the Heffler family tree, I will see that I can now find, een seconde. I hope that the server is going to work so that otherwise you can do all that later. There are 3 houses. Now, there's no way if you would come to Skala Podolska today and you are a descendant of Max, okay, not Max with his great memory and all the knowledge that he has, and see all the houses in which his family lived without being able to link the tree to the houses or to the location of the houses prior to their visit. Yes, you can of course do this, but this really helps when everything is done in advance for you. We can also organize tours. So there is a Heffler tree tour. So I can go here and I can say, I want to now walk from one side to the other. And we will then recommend start at this location, which is house number 269, max, go to house number 25 and 432. And we can do that also for the Brettschneider family. So there are few people for whom we've developed these SWIGGI tours. I will show you another thing with your permission so that you can see something else. If I will now go into house number 27, you remember that was the house in which we had the, wacht even, in which we had the, I hope it will work. House number 27, right? This is the house where we had the families, the brothers. Een seconde. Scala. House number 27. If I will go here and I will go into this house. Okay, if it doesn't work, then I'll do it like this. I can go into this house. Here, I'm now going into this house. In this specific house, I will see different family names and first names, Brettschneider. And you can see here there's a column with a tree. It does not mean if there is a family tree that all the people in a given house belong to the same family. In this house, there are several families for whom we've developed family trees. If I will go down to a woman called Esther Wiesenthal, who was born in 1821 and passed away in 1881 in Skala, and I will now go into her family tree. And I will go into her, een seconde, and I will go into her descendant tree, descendant chart. I will go into her descendant chart. Remember, so far we were constantly visiting Skala. And I will go to Esther. Do you see Esther here? Esther is over here. If I now go here, do you see this is Ashil? Do you remember who is Ashil? Ashil is the father of Simon Wiesenthal. Here are Hillel and Simon. If I will go into Simon, I can go into his SWIGGI. And look where I am now. You see where I am? I'm in Vienna. Because the tool is not about developing family trees for a given shtetl or for a given city. The tool is about thoroughly linking genealogy data, which is all over the place, and locations wherever. So I can go from Skala Podolska, where Simon Wiesenthal's great grandmother, the mother of Szymon Wiesenthal, lived or passed away, and I can now enter into Vienna. And in Vienna, we have many special projects. I can go into, wacht even, I can go into the cemetery in Vienna. If I go into the cemetery in Vienna, I assume some of you have family members in Vienna, such as Tony. I can now search for people. These are tombstones. Okay, so I know Dana is not here, but we can go to given tombstones and see how are they linked to the houses in which these people lived. If Viktor Frankl, you know Viktor Frankl? Or you know Zuckerkandel, they're different people, doesn't matter. Let's go to Viktor Frankl. I can search in the cemetery for the tombstone of Viktor Frankl, and I can go into his tombstone. A tombstone is like a house. And from his tombstone, I can go to his family tree in Vienna, but I can also go to his house. I am now in Vienna, in his house. I can enter this house. And here he is. So SWIGGI is much more than only focusing on what we have developed for Skala Podolska, for Skala and Nadvorna, the shtetls, but it is also about huge cities such as Lodz, for which we have 500,000 records, 250,000 pre-war data records, and 250,000 records during the war. If I go here and I look, for instance, for a person called Goldblit in SWIGGI Lodz, I will find, wacht even, I will find 4 houses. Four houses. I'll go into this specific house on the Kirchgasse number 4. There are many people in this house, so I will write the name, Goldblit. I'm in Dinges, I'm in Lodz. I'm gonna search. What do I see? I see on the Kirchgasse number 4 in Lodz that there are 2 people, Blima and Elias Hirsch. Now I tell you that they're related. Blima is the mother of Elias Hirsch. If I go into the Simon Wiesenthal Holocaust Memorial of Elias Hirsch, I see that he was born in Poland and he was murdered in Mauthausen.
Christ.
So we can move around through this entire platform. We can move around between the research maps, educational programs that we carry out in Italy and in Vienna with the parliament. Of course, we commemorate my late grandfather. We can search Holocaust victims in different ways. For instance, and this is going to be the end of what I'm going to say to you guys. So if we go into the search that we've developed here, we can look for a commemorated person. For instance, let's go for Bernard Rates, a young boy who was murdered. So this is Bernard Rates. I can go into his memorial page, and all of a sudden I'll see that there is also a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, which was not made by me. It was made by children in non-Jewish schools in Vienna who were researching Bernard Rates in Vienna. Okay, so I will stop sharing because I don't want to overload you more than I already did, but I hope that you can see. Yes, George.
I have a quick question. Where are you?
We live in Israel, so I live in Ra'anana. That's where I am.
So I just want to say that I know you're going through some difficult times, and you have our support.
Thank you so much. One of the ways I asked for your support was by carrying out this webinar, because we are in a very tough situation, as you know. And for me, this was a very good thing that I could share this with you. And both Maya and myself, we worked a lot on this presentation. and it was a way to have some, some comfort that there are still connections that we have to people like you guys overseas, to our roots, to things that we developed together with Yossi. So thank you, George.
Yasher koach.
תודה רבה, Eileen.
And stay safe.
Thanks.
There
Meryl,
was
did
a,
we answer all the questions?
there's a
Matt.
question about the Skala cemetery in the chat.
All right.
Elisa's question.
Yeah, I had asked, like we have a record that shows a relative died in Skala, or place of burial or death was Skala, and I was wondering if the cemetery that we work to preserve, like if those records are integrated somehow to look
So
at.
the answer at the moment is no, and therefore I showed you what we do at the Central Cemetery in Vienna.
Yeah, that's what I saw, and I was like, oh, that would be
Yeah. So
Have
if
you
you
che-
remember when I started the presentation, this is what I showed you. Okay, you can take all the cemetery tombstones, and they have also images, so we can link those to the houses in which the Jews lived and to the family trees of the descendants of Skala.
Elisa, have you checked Joe Bar also to see if I believe some are in there.
Can you tell me what Joe Bar is? We have like
Jewish
an
online a worldwide burial registry.
Oh, okay. I've seen that
of
as
Jewish Gen. Yeah, I do the HTML for that every 6 months.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Scala. I have to check, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay. And where do I send the records that could help you? Like, what do I need to send you if we know that we have a record of somebody at
You can send us an email, and then we will work with you, and Maya will tell you exactly what type of data we're looking for. It's also helpful if you want to support our project. We have a way that you can donate, so that we can continue doing this work that we're doing. As you see, it's in Scala, but it's also elsewhere. So that's also a way to support our work.
By the way, if you search in Google for Scala Jowbar, Jowbr, it comes up with 134 burials and 134 photographs. So you might want to check there.
Thank you.
Let me
Tony,
suggest folks also look at the Scala website that we've created, and we have some information about the Scala Cemetery there. I'll put the link to that in the chat in a second.
Tony, is there any place where the already extant Scala family books are collected so that future people can have access to them? Or should we consider setting something up like that?
Let's talk offline about that. I need to think about that. I've just put a link in the chat to our website.
Yeah. One of the things that Yossi also does, if we, for instance, commemorate synagogues, then we will refer to websites. So we did a similar work for the synagogues in Lodz, and we refer to Jewish Gen that were describing these synagogues. And we could do the same in Scala if you will refer us to specific pages, because the website, the Scala website, is very extensive, developed by Helene and Max. Then we could make that connection as well. I didn't say, but we have Scala or SWIGGI also available on your mobile phone. Yossi is in the last stages of the development, so that we will be able to offer an app that will enable you to use it, whether remotely or while scrolling in Scala Podolska.
Thank you for the tour, Rachel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tony, do you want to say anything in closing? I'm really pleased to see so many people have interest in this project. I think it's a really meaningful work.
Thank you.
So we have an email list. Feel free to send questions to the group. I thank Racheli for this very informative presentation. She's done an awful lot of very, very useful work, both for Skala and several of the other towns and cities that she's worked in. So we greatly appreciate it.
Maya, do you want to add something?
I think you summed everything up very nice. Thank you for everyone for joining today. It was very nice being here.
You'll see.
Thank you all for joining. Racheli really gave a good presentation, so I don't have anything else to add.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah.
Dag sameach.
Tack så mycket.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Be safe.